Well, hi there. I'm Lisa Lammy with Lisa Lammy Art, and welcome. Today, I've got a special treat. We're going to be talking to a lady by the name of Debra Weller, who comes from St. Augustine, Florida. She is an educator, consultant, and a storyteller. And before I do that, I will just tell you who I am. I'm Lisa Lammy, as I said. I am a self-taught artist based out of St. Albert, Alberta, Canada. And my mission is to help women get in touch with their creative side. And in doing that, find the peace and joy that they've been looking for. And this lady, as I said, my special guest, brings a lot of peace and joy to people, particularly businesses who are, struggling with telling their unique story. And she just has all the tools and tips and tricks to get them telling a story with confidence. As I mentioned, she's an educator, a storyteller, a consultant. She also happens to offer online education and virtual coaching, all about storytelling, and not just for children, but for adults and businesses as well. And Deb is driven by providing valuable educational experiences and performances for her audience. So I want to, before I go any further, let Deb tell us all about her personal journey. And it's a very interesting one. And she can tell her own story. So here you go. Over to you, Deb.
Thank you, Lisa, for that nice introduction. We all are on a story journey. It is our narrative journey from whence we came to where we are now, and maybe there has been a transformation in the middle. And maybe we've overcome trials and adversity. So, in my life, I was always that naughty kid that a mother was sending to her room. And in my room, I was able to create stories with my dolls and stuffed animals and teacups. It led me on that beginning journey of, well, maybe I could become socially acceptable by using my storytelling in a more way that people would clam onto it and say, hey, she does have something to say. How could that work? Well, let's see. I started telling stories in my first business, which was babysitting. And that was the best way to get kids to go to sleep. And then when I became an educator, I realized teaching art, science, music through storytelling was actually the best way for the brain to remember. In fact, our brain thrives on the structure of stories. And that is how we can learn. Think of the best minister you heard, the best professor you've had, or a good friend or a grandma, a grandpa. They told you stories and you were able to remember it from the heart. I got the bug to be a professional storyteller over 40 years ago. I was in New Jersey and met a woman who was going to take care of my baby while I was finishing university classes. Lynn and I said one day, hey, why don't we become storytellers? Storytellers? Yes. So we found out there were storytelling groups in the United States at that time who were in a revival state. We joined some of those, and then it took us 6 months of studying and rehearsing to be ready to tell our first stories. 2 folk tales. I play the guitar. We sang songs. We got our first job at a preschool. And we had to learn more stories, and we couldn't take 6 months to learn them. So we had to figure out how to learn stories in 2 weeks or less. And we wound up performing all over Philadelphia and New Jersey and down to Delaware in recreation departments, camps, libraries, festivals like the Philadelphia Folk Festival. And we began this circuit. And then I messed everything up by moving to California. And so I moved to California and I helped to found a nonprofit organization called the South Coast Storytellers Guild in Southern California. And we became a group of storytellers who performed in the area and connected with the Los Angeles storytellers. I also use storytelling in my classroom as a kindergarten teacher for 35 years, have taught teachers how to use storytelling in their classes, and business people how to become professional speakers. Even lawyers in the courtroom are telling stories. So I work with people to help them to bring their storytelling alive. And you think, wait a minute, storytelling is just for kids. Mm-mm. It is not. It is one of the finest ways to promote your business by telling the story, your mission, who you are, what you do, and how you serve your customers. It is the most engaging tool that you could find. So after 40 years, I am not done with my storytelling career. Yes, I retired full time from teaching, but I am still teaching online. I am teaching in my community, and I am performing right now. I have lots of stories I'm working on because you have to prepare when you're a storyteller for ghost stories in October.
Oh, yes. You just hearing what you do, and actually, I follow Deb very closely on Instagram and all the places. You have a lot on the go. How do you manage to juggle all of that? Like, you had indicated to me you're retired, but this does not sound like retirement. It's
No.
or actually, it's very motivating because I think I'm in total agreement this is how our second act should be. It should be challenging us, and it sounds like there is that definitely, and we should be sharing all of our knowledge that we've accrued over a number of years, and you're doing that. It must be really gratifying to work with clients and have people that maybe thought they didn't have a story to tell and helping them shape that. Tell me more about, like, just some of the tell me a story, to use a phrase. Tell me a story about just some of the people that you've helped and what it's like to
Mhm.
see that transformation.
Well, the people that I've helped most are those who do not have that confidence yet
Mhm.
to realize that number one, their story is important to the business end because we all have the why we're doing it. Like for you, Lisa, you've come to exit out of a corporate job now and to really use your talents. That is part of your motivation and story. That is called a transformation story.
Mhm.
So, for some business owners, and especially I work with a lot of solo business owners too, because we feel shy. We want to tell about our business, we want to tell about our product, but what about you? Who are you? Like
Yeah.
I explained my story of where I came from. To engage people, to get them to trust you, you have to show that authentic self. Who is Lisa? Who is Deborah? And some of the people I have worked with to help them discover, I've used someone who has a business being a she's a physical therapist, and I've helped her to come around and realize, well, what brought you to it? And she had a series of injuries in her life and got no answers. So she studied to become a physical therapist. And now she's reaching out to help more people because she walked the walk. She didn't just go to school, she walked the walk of pain and suffering and finding her courage. Those are the things that bring empathy to the people who we serve in our businesses. So, how do you create empathy? Like in your business, pets. People lose pets. People want to commemorate their pets. People love their pets.
Yeah.
And so, when you do your beautiful artwork, you are reaching out. And so, in your message that you give, in the stories that you give, you can come from that heart place about their fur babies and how you put so much detail into your work to make them look alive to them so that that memory of that pet can be commemorated. I've worked with people who were very shy, introverted,
Yeah.
and I've helped them because public speaking is the scariest thing for some people, or putting yourself out on video in social media marketing. So by finding that confidence, and I teach virtual classes on this, I also do virtual coaching to assist people kind of to build up their confidence, to let them practice with me. And I am coaching them. I am not trying to tear them down. I
Yeah.
am trying to build them up, but also show them the skills that they need by using their voice properly, by finding cadence in their voice, by using eye contact, but helping them also to create those scripts that they need to tell that story and to realize it doesn't have to be a saga, but it
Yeah.
can be short and succinct, especially on social media. So, for what I do is I coach people to become dynamic in their
Yeah.
speaking skills, but using storytelling as the vehicle because we all have that story, and or we could find a fable that can demonstrate a moral or a purpose of our storytelling to give a message to entice our customers to relate to that
Yeah.
story or to relate to that experience that you went through. We are not alone.
And you
There's
know
probably
what? That is so powerful what you shared. Going back to the point where you talked about the physiotherapist you worked with and
Mhm,
how she was able to tell stories about her own pain and how that made sense in the occupation she was in. Like I'm thinking back to a speaking engagement. I actually went back to my hometown to speak at a high school grad. This was years and years ago when I was in broadcasting still. And I had just experienced probably one of the most traumatic, and to this day, probably still the most traumatic incidents of my life. I was hit by an
mhm.
impaired driver.
Ooh,
And there is, and I'm sure it still exists, it's like things haven't changed in the area of impaired driving. It's still so much of a problem. And knowing in the rural areas, it was even worse because a lot of these people feel youngsters think they can be undetected because they don't have the level of policing out there. And so I shared my own personal journey back after being injured by an impaired driver and how it doesn't just affect your physical body, it affects your mental state because driving to this day is still something I get into certain situations and it's like I get flashbacks to
mhm,
what
mhm,
what occurred. And I remember I thought, should I share this story? Am I going to ruin grad for all these kids? But I shared it. And then I talked obviously a bit about, my broadcast career because that's what they wanted me there for. But of everything, career aside, you're the little celebrity in your hometown. The most impactful part of my speech was when I shared the story of coming back after having been hit by an impaired driver, what it was like to have to come back.
mhm,
And like my mother, who happened to be a special guest, I was allowed to bring a guest. She said she looked around the room and there were women diving into their purses, trying to find tissue, handing
mhm,
it off to
mhm,
their husband because they needed one as well.
mhm,
So when you realize you made that kind of an impact, you feel like, okay, that situation that happened to me was unfortunate, but there was some meaning behind it and a story was
mhm.
shared and maybe some value came out of it. Maybe I changed some lives that night. So yes, I can wholeheartedly agree that storytelling, when you use it in the right context, is a powerful thing. So that
And
is a great gift you're giving people.
oh, thank you. And that, what you just talked about was a perfect example. It is your personal experience. You own it. And the business owners, it is your personal experience. You own it. Your story is your power. That's my motto.
Yeah,
And no one else could tell that story to have that effect on the audience in the way that you told it.
yeah,
So when we are thinking about, oh, but what is my story? How do I organize my story? There's several different ways. First of all, you might think, okay, the why.
Yeah.
Why do we do it? That's a great story. So jot down a few of the whys of how it is and put it into more of a story format with a little beginning, middle, and end. For me, it was I always wanted another source of income. I was a teacher, but you just never know when your source of income can change. You could have an injury, whatever. And I always felt I needed to back up my income. So that was one of my whys. My other why is I wanted to be able to have flexibility in my scheduling. So as a teacher, I had a specific schedule during the day, but then I could go and earn extra income sometimes in the evenings or on weekends or seasonal work when it came to certain holidays where storytelling might be a little more effective. But I also found an awesome experience of teaching storytelling docents at museums, teachers at conferences, because of one story I told at a conference in one presentation. I didn't know who was in my audience. It was the owner of a school in Vietnam, in Saigon.
Oh,
Next thing you know, she says, I want you to come to my school to teach my children. First, I went out for a visit just to see the lay of the land. She told me I could bring one person. I brought another colleague with me during my spring break. Next thing you know, the next 3 summers, they paid my way to Vietnam to train teachers. And I got to have that fabulous experience of storytelling. And it was about storytelling throughout the curriculum for teachers. However, it's just like where you want to put that skill. It is how you relate to people in a networking situation. You know, we're always told to have like our little elevator
yeah.
speech ready to go, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But you have to realize that when you are telling those stories, your main goal is not about spouting forth that story. Your main goal is, what do I want the audience to feel? What do I want the audience to take away? You can go and present data and all kinds of fancy PowerPoints, but if you do not tie it together with a compelling story, which like could be yours, the introduction of how you had that accident, but you went on through your life, you went through the pain and suffering, you went into a career, and now you're giving back into the community by sharing that unfortunate situation of your accident to help these young people. So we always have to be conscious of the audience.
Yeah,
Who
exactly.
are we talking to, and how would we craft that story? Let's say you're talking to a group of young mothers. Well, how you craft your business statement to those young mothers will be different than if you're talking to students at a high school.
Mhm. And I think if we go back in time and remember, maybe some speaking engagement you attended,
Mhm.
you're gonna remember that impactful speech because the person who created that and authored that speech or delivered that speech was very, strategic in how they did it, and they did it through story because it's the stories that will stick with you, the data will not stick with you.
No,
We all will recall something from that speech if it was a powerful one that has still stayed with us to this day, whether it's a quote that maybe you don't have quite down, but you got the gist of what they're trying to tell you and it stuck with you. That to me is the powerful presenter for sure.
it is, Lisa. And actually, out of Stanford University and other studies have come out recently about the brain research behind storytelling. And they say, like music's one of those things that will stay in our brain forever. Well, storytelling, when you are listening to a story, they have found out that when you're listening to someone telling a story, your heartbeat goes in sync with the storyteller. When you're listening to classical music and storytelling, it's lighting up the whole brain in all different areas. But most of all, what it does is the brain saying, oh, I can hold on to this. It's a story. I can put it into long-term memory. Whereas that data, the PowerPoint presentation, that's not connected to a story, it goes in and out and doesn't stay. It goes into short-term memory. So I thought it was rather fascinating that more research is coming out on the power of storytelling. So if you really want to impact people in your business, finding that story message is critical. And crafting a story, of course, you say, but how do I do this? I don't know how to do it, you know. Start with a basic structure. Just jot down, do a brainstorming session of all the ideas of, say, oh, well, I want to promote my business, but where do I begin and how do I fulfill that? So I want you to brainstorm all the possible ideas of things that you've learned in your business, how you've helped people in your business, what tools you've had to use, what training you had to have. Each of those little segments becomes a part that could become a story in itself, especially on social media marketing, where you might be able to engage someone for 15 to 60 seconds. So that story needs to be powerful, short, 3 sentences, and it technically is not like a full story, you know.
Yeah.
It really is more of a story message when you have to do it short like that. But when you're thinking about the copy, whether you're writing a blog or whether you're going into the copy of your ads, you want it somehow to relate to the audience that you are trying to attract.
Yeah.
And I've seen with realtors lately, I've seen some great ads on TV, but is it the young couple buying their first house? Is it the empty nesters who are moving on to that next stage in life where they need something to be downsized? Is it the family that's looking for the house? How do you connect your story message to engage them? What do they need to hear? And that
Like
takes a little
customized.
brainstorming.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
customizing. So I'm sure, how do you use that in your work? You're customizing your work too, aren't you, in the message you're giving?
Yeah, because you'll have people that are interested in a pet portraiture, but then I
Mhm.
also have another segment of my audience that is interested in learning how to create a pet portraiture, right? And then
Mhm.
even those could be split between those that might have been in colored pencil for a while, left it behind, but want to relearn from somebody like at the very beginning, or those that it's like colored pencil, you can work with this, like, so you got that very divergent audience. So you're right. You've got to really cater your writing and creation to that particular audience, or you can't hit everybody. Or what's the saying? You speak to everyone, you speak to no one, right?
Exactly,
Yeah.
right. And you have to refine it through your story. What is
Yeah.
the message that you want to give out to that? And I can see, I mean, even the materials you use have a story.
Yes.
The
Yes.
colored pencils, the techniques you have to use in order to get them to really show the cross hatching you might use, the overlay that you might use to create what you do as an artist.
Mhm.
So I think for most people, it's finding that courage. And that's where, when you need to find that courage to tell your story, practice it. Take out your phone, I'm sorry, I better put it in this hand. There we go. Okay.
Yes.
Come on, camera kid. Okay. Take out your phone, record
Yeah.
your
Yeah.
voice. Some people get freaked out about the sound of their voice.
Yeah.
And
But
so
you'll
you
get
want to
over
make
it.
sure
Like,
you do. It's you.
yeah.
It's who you are. And you need to speak not in rapido. Hello, my name is Debra Weller, and I'm a professional storyteller.
We'll get through this fast.
Yeah, let's just get through it. And some people do have that tendency. They're
Yeah.
so nervous. And of course, I use breathing exercises to help me calm down if I need to. Even now, after all these years of performing, I still get sweat under my armpits, a little fluttery here in my chest, but I've learned to calm myself down. Number one, I practiced. I know when I go on that stage, I'm going to give a big smile and I am going to proceed and feel confident because I know my material and it comes from the heart.
And I think if you lose that sweatiness to your palm or the rapid heartbeat, I would be concerned because to me, that's
Mm,
just your body amping up for this
yeah.
presentation. And I think that's healthy to have that. You show excitement. You don't want to come in just like
No,
just
no,
that
and you don't want to
demeanor.
do the monotone, hello, my name is Debra Weller, and I'm here
Yeah,
to give
no, not sure that
presentation.
would get an audience. No.
Everybody's going to go to sleep.
You know what? You've shared a lot of great things. Is there I could share it in the description later,
Right.
but let my audience know all the places they can find you. And I know I rattled on about the courses you offer. Like
Mm-hmm.
honestly, lady, you're everywhere. So if they can't
I'm
find you on
trying to
Instagram, you've got a
be.
website. You'll be in their community. But yeah, just share some of the stuff that you've got on the go, and
Okay.
and where they can find you.
Where can you find me? First of all, you can find me on Facebook at Debra Weller. Just search that, friend me, let me know you saw me on Lisa's broadcast, and I'd be happy to let you into my community. The other place is on Instagram. That's where I hang out a lot. And I give lots of examples of storytelling or storytelling tips on Instagram. And that is at Deb Storyteller. I am on LinkedIn, Debra Weller. You can find me there. And I frequently post some tips as that's a little more formal presentation on LinkedIn. Also, you may find me on YouTube, Debra Weller. I try to keep that name going everywhere I go. And I do have wonderful things for children on YouTube also, but there are presentations there. Now, my website, that's a big one. So Lisa will, we can put it in there, but
Yeah,
it's
post.
it's well, I could go in HTTPS, all that's on there, but it's story dash telling courses.com. And that's where you can have access to my courses and to arrange virtual coaching experiences. And I also have, if you go onto my Instagram and you press my picture, you'll come to what's called the bio. And in the bio is a blue link and it says link tree. And on that, it will also come up in one place all of those links to my events. And I am also on a Thinkific course, which is overcoming glossophobia, the fear of public speaking. So it includes the course and it includes 1 hour of virtual coaching that comes within the course to help you get there. So I think once we overcome, well, we have to acknowledge we have that fear,
Yeah.
and you know it if you have it. You're sweating.
And
You're
Deb,
saying, no, please don't
I
ask
had
me.
shared with you that I finally took a course. I should have taken your course, but I finally took a course all about going live. And it
Mm,
was kind of crazy because I used to be an anchor reporter, but that was 30 years ago. And it's so far back in my history that honestly, the brain's a weird thing. All of a sudden, all these self-doubt, you can't do it.
mm,
Who are you thinking? Imposter syndrome, blah, blah, blah. All that came back with fury. And it actually took this course. It took me putting myself in what I thought was a really uncomfortable situation and doing it anyway. And basically going, why did I waste so much time to get to this point? But the fact that you got there and did the darn thing is a good thing. So I'm
yeah.
saying that if anybody's feeling that, I can assure you that you will get over it. You just have to do it. Just have to do the darn thing.
It is a mindset. As we know, the mind is very powerful. It's what causes anxieties, and it's actually a form of anxiety. And so we have to say, you know, if I'm going to be successful in business and in my career, do you know that Forbes says 90% of our success in business is based on our oral communication skills? Do they teach it in college? Well, if you're lucky to take debate classes or public speaking, high school, maybe if you've been on the debate team, but it is not promoted. You might have done some presentations in school. And a virtual presentation is a whole different ballgame than being on a stage. So when you're in front of a camera, as you know, that can send shivers up our spines sometimes.
Yeah.
So it is a mindset, and there are techniques to overcome it. But the biggest thing is when you are practiced, when you have polished, when you love what you do and the message, you're going to come across in a lovely way. And you don't have to be perfect. Okay.
Yes.
You can
Because no one's
stumble.
perfect.
Yeah, you can stumble over your words a little bit. It's like, don't forget, oh, people won't understand. I'll stumble over my words. I'll forget what I have to say. All those excuses. Yes, those happen. And I've had them happen too. Okay. So we make bloopers and blunders and all
Oh,
of
yeah.
that. But you know what? If you come across authentically and your message touches the heart, they're going to not even remember that you coughed in the middle
Yeah.
or you choked on your words.
Totally agree. Totally agree. Well, Deb, this has been awesome. So now that we've we've shared all the places, and I'll put everything in the description for them as well. I
Thank
just
you.
want to thank you so much for taking time out of, and I'm not even kidding, your crazy schedule. And I know you still got more up your sleeve over the next few days and weeks and beyond, and Mrs. Santa stuff also.
Oh, yeah.
You've got that on the go. I just want to thank you so much for taking the time to tell us your story and be that encouragement to others to do the darn thing. Tell their story because it will help them. It'll help them in their business for sure, but it's going to do so much more than that. It'll build up their self-esteem. I know it did mine when I finally, went and made that commitment to myself and took a course to overcome that hurdle that I had built up for myself. Because a lot of it is up here. Once you get the mindset down, you're on the home stretch.
Well, I'm so grateful that you contacted me and invited me to be on this presentation. I hope it helps people. And, you never know who you're going to meet. And I'm so grateful it's because of Instagram that I got to meet Lisa. And
Oh,
had we not bothered
yeah.
to connect with one another fully, then we never would have had this nice friendship relationship over the miles. So thank you for all that you're doing to help people become more confident in their work and to bring on interesting speakers who will promote topics that will assist people in their businesses and in their personal life.
Oh, that's very sweet. Thank you, Deb. And thanks to everyone who's, joined me and are watching this. I hope you're encouraged by the stories that Deb and I are sharing because all of us have a story to share with the world. I will
Mhm.
talk to you soon. Bye, everyone.